Louis Bacon, the hedge fund investment czar, along with management personalities in the Life at Key Property Owners Association, may have been caught off guard in a landmark decision by a high court in Manitoba, Canada, which cleared the way for fashion mogul Peter Nygard to privately prosecute key players in the Canadian Broadcasting Company and their news magazine, The Fifth Estate. Judge Sid Lerner, according to the newspaper reports out of Canada and confirmed by attorneys for Mr. Nygard and the CBC, ruled that there was sufficient evidence for Mr. Nygard's private prosecution to proceed. Summonses have been issued for the CBC's Bob McEwen, the host of his popular Fifth Estate show, and its producers Timothy Soa and Maurice Karp. At the epicenter of this private prosecution is an assertion by Mr. Nygard that the CBC was assisted, aided and abetted by Mr. Bacon and Ms. Brathwaite in airing their story, and that Mr. Jerry Forrester, the former FBI agent, and Bradley Pratt, a former police sergeant, were retained to assist in supplying the tainted information to the CBC allegedly by Mr. Bacon and Ms. Brathwaite. This was also the allegation and assertion that Mr. Nygard used in a similar private criminal prosecution he commenced last April in the Bahamas courts against the same personalities. In their larger-than-life episode broadcast in April 2010, the CBC is accused by Mr. Nygard of liable defamation. Mr. Nygard, whose fashion brand in North America stood to suffer the brunt of damage by the CBC story, is claiming that the collaborators used their program to maliciously float information they knew to be patently fraudulent. And additionally, some of the comments and statements aired during the show were procured with offers and payments of bribes, and where the station had verified that a comment was false, it nevertheless allowed the tainted comment to be broadcast. As a permanent resident in the Bahamas, where he has invested over $100 million in his Mayan-themed home at Nygard Key, such revelations as contained in the CBC story put Mr. Nygard's immigration status at risk in this country, and the other serious and salacious allegations would have subjected him to even more serious law enforcement issues, it is claimed. At the heart of this assertion is Mr. Nygard's other contention that his enemies in the Life at Key Property Owners Association and Mr. Bacon were a part of the conspiracy for the singular intent of having his immigration status in the Bahamas become an issue, which would then have also led to Mr. Nygard having to abandon his residence at Nygard Key on the southwestern tip of Life at Key. How does this complicate life for Mr. Bacon, Ms. Brathwaite, the former FBI agent Jerry Forrester, and former police sergeant Bradley Pratt? These were all persons named in a private criminal prosecution Mr. Nygard commenced in the Magistrates Court in Nassau last April. The CBC personalities were also named in that action. Unlike the Canadian jurisdiction, where a court of law determines the prima facie strengths of a private criminal prosecution, in the Bahamas, such authority is singularly and exclusively lodged in the Attorney General, who is not required to give a reason for entering a nolle or ending a private or public criminal prosecution. When Mr. Nygard's private criminal proceedings against these persons opened for arraignment in the Magistrates Court in Nassau last April, then Attorney General John Delaney, who also lives in Life at Key, quashed the proceedings, even arguing against the defendants being asked to plead to the charges. Mr. Bacon, although named in that action, artfully avoided service of his summons. If convicted, the CBC personalities face jail terms of 2 to 5 years. Bacon may have a credibility problem, as he reportedly illegally constructed a boat basin at his $20 million Point House retreat 4 years ago. A 1985 Commission of Inquiry report has suggested to the government that such private boat basins were used exclusively for the movement of contraband and narcotics.